There is no way to talk about our lives in PG terms.
Well, which is why we gather here on this couch every week so we can decompress, we can de-stress, and talk it out.
Yeah, and now we invite you to become part of that conversation. Welcome to Unmasking. Yulia, what are we talking about this week?
A lot of things. We're talking about revolutions, and we're talking about why are we always talking about the US? I mean, I know why we're always talking about the US, but gosh, please stop making it to the news. We're going to talk about the US. We're going to talk about revolutions. We're going to talk about
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day.
Happy
Yeah.
St. Patrick's Day to everybody who celebrates and or chooses to use this day as a fully appropriate reason to get really drunk.
Yeah, that's a very appropriate reason to get very drunk, but instead we're sitting here and doing the podcast, which is fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
No, we didn't want to party at all.
No, it's not like I tried to reschedule this 5 times and nothing worked anyways.
But we choose to be here with you, so...
Well, we choose to be here with each other. But yeah, so revolutions. Where do I even start? This is so interesting because... And I'm so tired of honestly talking about the US and how bad the US is. But the other week, did you see that there was a German green card holder who was detained at the Logan Airport in Chicago, I believe?
No.
Yeah. And he was literally subjected to torture for 48 hours, aka he was stripped naked. They were basically threatening him to relinquish his green card.
Do they have any reasons?
No.
Of course.
He did not have any food or water for an extended period of time. Wow. His family is obviously making a huge deal out of it. But I need to figure out what to do with myself because I have a green card.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been living here, and obviously for the conditions of the green card, in order for me to keep it, I need to come back to the US for a calendar month every year. And
you were in the US recently, though.
I was in
so
the
you're
US.
safe for now.
I was in the US in October, so I have to go back by September. But the thing is, I'm terrified. I don't.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of like traveling to North Korea.
Or Russia, because you were saying this experience, and I actually have a friend who was studying there at the time, before the full-scale war. So, people still were traveling between Russia and Ukraine. And she was studying and, went a bunch of times, was in a university student in Russia, but she was Ukrainian. And all of a sudden, they packed her up in the airport, and she was also held for almost 2 days. They went through her entire phone, through all of her things, including her suitcase, went through everything. And then they ended up deporting her, and now she's never allowed back.
Yeah, well, see, that's
for no reason as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. But what kind of terrifies me with the United States is that if they were to just deny you entry and turn you around and ship you back.
That's one
Sure,
thing.
cool, fine. Sucks. Really bad, obviously. 14 years of my life sort of gone. But you just go back. But no, they detain you. They can ship you to Guantanamo. They can decide to ship you to Ecuador. No, it's not Ecuador. It's a bunch of different Latin American countries that decided to take American unwanted illegal aliens and aliens in general. So it's you don't even know what the fuck is going to happen to you. I don't want to risk my life. I don't want to risk being detained at JFK.
Just for going back to your home country in a way.
I know. And it's this guy who was detained. He had a green card since 2008, and he legitimately lives in America full time. So he was just traveling and he was coming back home. So what is it to say for me, right? Because for the past year I have been living here.
And you were vocal as well about America not doing well. I'm assuming this guy haven't been bringing a lot of
Yeah.
attention to himself.
Yeah, well, that's another thing is these are rumors, they're unconfirmed, but TSA agents have been authorized to basically plug in spyware into your phones and check for specific words like Trump, for instance, and see what you have ever said about him. And I'm a public persona in a way, right? But that is not even Russia, that's North Korea. Like that is
it's very scary, and how fast it's happening. It's quite bizarre, I think.
That's surveillance to the max. And I saw a TikTok of TikToks of a bunch of American lawyers basically saying like, "Oh, travel with blank phones."
That's what people say when like journalists have to go to the front line.
Yeah, or to Russia, or to North Korea, or to any unstable country. And also, the U.S. has been added to the UN Human Rights Watch.
Yes, I saw that.
Because it's rapidly declining in human rights.
Rapidly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, which is so scary and upsetting, I think, to watch for the entire world, right? Because that's the reason we all are talking about America, because for the longest time, they have been, yelling from the tops of their lungs that, like, we are the example of human rights and democracy and liberty and freedom and all these important sounding words. And now they're like, yeah, all of these things, but no rights for you, no rights for you. And we in general don't really care about human beings at all, but let's drill.
Drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill.
Well, the French, well, not the French, but one of the French politicians came out and said that America should return the Statue of Liberty to France. They demanded back because it no longer represents liberty.
We should put it next to Ukrainian motherland statue.
Yeah, actually, it would look nice. And it would remind...
Motherland statue is actually taller than the Statue of Liberty, I think.
Yeah, but it would remind me of New York. Maybe I wouldn't need New York if I just had Statue of Liberty here.
You have our own one, and I think it's almost better, if I'm being honest.
I know, but like, I miss New York.
Of course.
That's where like the dilemma is. I have to make a lot of very important life decisions, and I know I have half a year to do that, but it's pressing.
It is pressing, and I'm sorry you have to go through that. I mean, having to go through your home, going through war is enough, but to have two homes that you don't feel safe returning to, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, and I know the answer to this, like a very complex answer to this, but I always wonder, how did the U.S. get here, right? It's interesting because as you said, Americans have been yelling that they're like the beacon of human rights and liberties and progress and all of that stuff. And that was true like 50 years ago, because it was Americans had all of these liberties and they had all of this freedom and they had the American dream, and you could like move there and be a single income household depending on your husband and have like a 5-bedroom, house or whatever. But then like 50 years ago, that progress stopped because, Americans still live and think that they're the only country where all of this was allowed. But in reality, Europe is
progressed further, and America kind of stopped in that logic and now is actually degressing.
Exactly. And regressing. It's that paradox of like a talented artist, right? You can be a non-talented artist or anything, and you can work really, really hard, and you are going to sell, you're going to have great works, you're going to be remembered, right? You can be the most talented person on the planet, but if you take the talent for granted and you stop developing it and working on it, it's not going to go anywhere.
No, of course.
But if you're talented and you work really hard, then you're of course going to excel and like, be the best of the best. That's what I think happened with America, is that everybody got so comfortable in thinking that they're the best and they're at the top of the world and they're doing everything better than everyone, that they stopped. It's kind of like that meme. There was a meme where China, it was basically like, China, we installed 20,000 eco-friendly, like whatever, and reduced pollution by blah, blah, blah. America, well, we brought the plague back.
Yeah, pretty good.
Or measles. We're about to bring measles back. Literally.
You know that there's this concept of, when you have a wooden ship and over time it starts destroying and you start putting new parts in it. And then eventually you change the entire ship. Is it still the same ship? So I think this is kind of where America is getting to a point of like, if you change all of the truly, important pillars of values of your country, can you still say that you're the same country?
No. There was this comment because I want to bring back the reading of the comments, but I want to do it more organically. But there was this comment that not someone, but Nicole left on our YouTube channel, and it says, I remember a TikTok live stream Yulia did in 2022, right after Roe versus Wade. And she said something about how Americans are becoming like Russians. I haven't forgotten it since and have watched that become more and more realized over time. It's actually an interesting comment specifically from Nicole because she's Ukrainian American. Her mom is Ukrainian, her dad is American, and she's from Oklahoma, which is one of the reddest states in the country, and they have like the lowest education rates. And so she recently moved to Washington, I think, or maybe it was Oregon, somewhere in the nice, hipster land where the weed is everywhere and the rights are still.
Sounds like a good place to live.
Yeah, and her parents are actually looking into selling their house in Oklahoma and moving there because obviously they don't want to be in the epicenter of all things terrible for the United States. And it's interesting that, that struck her and she was just... And it was like in her head, because I think that if she didn't see that happening over and over again, it would not be something that she held so long. Because it's 2025. It's 3 years ago, right?
And it was happening. I mean,
and it was a random TikTok stream. So it's just something that like got marked in her head and stayed there. And it's kind of sad because I think very few people saw that. I saw a recent poll on the New York Post. And the poll was basically that like more Americans than ever approve of Trump's actions in the past 3 months. Yeah, but the caveat is freedom of the media, because the media is trying to kiss his ass.
I was about to bring up, like, in general, I mean, what we've been seeing them do with cutting funding for, Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, like, that's already a pretty bad sign. And I mean, you can argue that, there's bureaucracy, there's money, American money that's going like where it shouldn't go, or if it influences the way journalists, bring information because they're funded by America, blah, 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 blah. There are many caveats. Regardless, Radio Free Europe had one of the best investigative teams in Ukraine. And now these people, who were investigating Russian war crimes and like doing all this important work don't have a job. And they're not doing their work anymore. So it's not about the fact that like America is taking money back. It's also thinking about not only people who lost their jobs, but also all these important jobs that they were doing.
Well, hey, is Cave Independent hiring for their war crimes investigation unit?
I don't check our website.
I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it's an expansion opportunity.
It is an expansion opportunity, but I hope that all people who work in Ukraine, especially in media, especially, talking to foreigners, that all of our goal is amplifying Ukraine's voices and, fighting Russian propaganda. Yeah, I don't know. It's just been very sad to see that. And I mean, with Dodge and Ukrainian children who've been stolen from Ukraine, it's just... Yeah. I think somebody said it at work today, this point that kind of really stuck with me, that many people don't realize that when we have peace talks, peace deals, ceasefire, whatever we have in the future, because it will end eventually, right? The war has to end. If it's going to be the way it looks like it might be, we have to accept one of the worst realities is that Putin is going to go without being charged for any of the war crimes he has committed. So this is the biggest thing Ukraine can do to like show that we want this peace. Ukrainians are not pushing for Putin to go to prison. And like he is literally in a list of people who should be, stopped if he goes to most countries around the world. So...
Well, he's supposed to be arrested if he goes to the United States, but we know that's not going to happen. The reason why I brought up the story with the New York Post is because when they said that 46% of Americans support, they said the largest amount of Americans than ever support Trump's recent actions. But here is the caveat. This is where the media is catering to Trump. 54% of Americans do not support Trump. Okay, 46% of Americans support Trump. Out of those 46% that support him, the largest amount of people than ever before with presidents who, like, let's say George Bush was supported by an X amount of people, and out of those people, less of a percentage approved of his, recent big actions, right?
So, that's why you need to read more than a headline.
Exactly. But it's so screwed up because their headline was like, oh, more Americans than ever support what Trump is doing. And it's like, so they know that of his support base. But I think that the good thing with what's happening, well, let's see it as a glass half full.
The silver lining.
Yeah, let's see it as a glass half full or a silver lining is that Europe seems to be picking up slack in terms of not trusting the US. And I have been really on board with the French lately.
I mean, yeah, you have.
Okay. I mean, politically.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, politically, I have been very on board with the French.
I mean, not gonna lie, the idea of 10,000+ of foreign troops, peacekeepers, boots on the ground in Ukraine sounds pretty damn good to me, for many reasons. But did you hear that apparently Putin's been pushing for that to be Chinese, which we're, yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Exactly. See, instead of 10,000 like French and other European men that could be brought into this country, because Ukraine has lost a lot of men. Let's just talk about like future of this country as well.
Okay, that sounds a bit racist.
I'm not talking about racism. I'm just saying that, like, no wonder Russia wants Chinese soldiers, first of all.
Well, because they're Russia supporting. Yeah, I don't want.
But then we're gonna have North Koreans, Chinese, and Russian in Ukraine. Yeah. Is that helping anyone?
No, Russia.
Yes,
it's helping Russia. I mean, I don't want that. I mean, like the idea of Chinese men here is not a bad idea.
No, Chinese men can come, just not as peacekeepers.
No, I don't want that. The French, however, yes,
you can come as peacekeepers for holidays. Any reason, really.
Just come. A short intermission. If you have been watching this far and you enjoy this chaos, please do give this chaos a like. Send it to a friend, your mom, your grandma, whoever will listen, because let's face it, who is not going to want to listen to us? And of course, comment
and subscribe.
Please do all the things, because in the economy of YouTube, that helps us very much to get our brilliant thoughts out there. Thank you. Speaking of the French, since we've started the subject, so I guess I need to nickname the man, because every time we talk about the man that I am dating, we name him the man, the guy. I name him. To be fair, I just sound incredibly awkward. So he's going to be the Frenchman. Yeah. He's French. He came...
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be confusing if he'd be, like, Irish. Sorry.
I did, yeah.
We can cut that.
There was an Irish.
There was an Irish.
There was an Irish. Maybe we'll bring him up one day, but just not
Probably
today.
Not.
No, I mean, we can bring it up. It was, it would be a good discussion for the future, for like, where's the line between PTSD and dickhead?
Ooh, episode 5 coming soon.
Yeah, actually. But back to the French. Back to the country I really support recently for no reason. No personal reason. Anyway, because Macron is really good. I'm even willing to forgive him for dating his best friend's growing up mother and marrying her. Yeah. Brigitte Macron is...
I don't know them. I remember that. I just don't really care about personal lives of most politicians.
The other day when he was like doing all of these speeches and he was standing up and he was like the free leader of Europe, I was like telling my French man, I was like, you need to be concerned because, he has the nukes and he can use the nukes against Putin. So that might... Yes. And he was like, Yulia, he's not interested in you. Is your grandma single?
Ooh, that's good. But really quick, there's so many power couples in politics, right? But honestly, my favorite one is Trump and his first lady. I have been getting so many good TikTok videos of her reactions to him, and it is the best thing I have ever seen in my life. Like, there's just constant like edits of like everybody getting up and her sitting.
Yeah.
Like, just for that alone, I live. But that's pretty much the only good thing that came out of Trump's presidency, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree with her being incredibly memeable in how much she doesn't give a fuck, but also she enables that man. So all of these like fan people of Melania, go screw yourself. So I have a lot of stories to tell you. My dogs now apparently speak French.
Do they?
Mm-hmm. So the Frenchman came over and he was like really trying to bond with them, which he did. They really like him, which is a good sign, Mm-hmm. He was showing them his authority, and he's telling them to sit in French. Mm-hmm. And
Did they?
No. Mm-hmm. And he's like, why aren't they sitting? I was like, they don't speak French. And he's like, yes, they do. So then he did get them to behave. Okay, actually so funny. I wish I had a video of that. He was like telling them to sit and they would sit, and he would tell them to wait and they would wait. I have this video where I recorded him. Basically, Cindy was giving him paw and he was like thanking her, and he was like, they need to respect the French. And I'm like, why? He's like, because they're French bulldogs. But they did seem to understand him. So he was like, picture this, 2 a.m. We're going to bed. My dogs sleep in bed with me. But he's warming up to the idea of dogs in bed, okay? They are not happy about sleeping on the couch. Yeah, it's their bed.
Like, he should sleep on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are we even talking about? And so it's 2 a.m. I'm in bed. I'm like ready to sleep. And I hear this whole monologue in French. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm negotiating with them.
What was the negotiations about?
Well, he was telling them...
The couch situation?
The bed couch situation. He was telling them that it's okay that they're sleeping on the couch, that they should know boundaries and, and that it doesn't mean that we don't love them in French. Yeah.
Did they answer?
Oh, they did answer. So picture this now. I fully expected Cindy to pee in front of my door in the morning because that's what she does when she's unhappy. Okay. When she's like really unhappy, she shows it to me by like peeing on my bed, peeing in front of she can't pee on the bed because the door is closed. But
she did the closest thing she could. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you don't even know. So it's 6 a.m. I wake up because I realized a Frenchman woke up to go to the bathroom, right? And then I hear like a paper towel being torn and I'm like, oh, she peed, right? I come out and there is Masha, 7 puddles. And I mean, it's like everywhere. And I mean, it looks like she was like squeezing it out.
She probably will spend the entire night doing that thing.
I mean, they were small puddles, but they were everywhere, right? And 3 piles of shit, one of which was on top of her bed. Like right there.
She was like, this is what I think about our sleeping arrangements.
No, seriously. And I like look at the Frenchman and he's like, it's okay. I got it. And I'm like, no, it's a team effort. So we ended up spending like 30 minutes cleaning the floor. Anyways, I then go back to bed, right? And I hear the French language again and he's telling them that it's okay, but they're being disrespectful.
Oh, you disrespectful dogs. Shit, do I need to learn Finnish now? My dog's supposed to be Finnish Lapland. I'm not learning Finnish.
I don't know, but they did seem to like respond to French.
Yeah, I'm not learning Finnish.
I mean...
It's a really hard language.
You can try. Just a few words.
No.
During the same French-filled evening that, taught me no French, but actually is so...
I'm sorry.
Oh, fuck you.
French-filled evening. This is so much.
During this French language filled evening, we were exploring a lot of different world tours that evening. We listened to Gaelic music.
Gaelic is the original language from Ireland, right?
Yes, of course it is. Masha, goddammit, I went through like a year of an insane clusterfuck of a relationship with a crazy Irishman, and you did not know.
I'm sorry. He never tried speaking Gaelic to me. I've never met him.
That's true.
So,
but his native, that should have been a red flag to begin with, but his native language is Gaelic. Anyway, so the point is that to me, a lot of Gaelic songs sound from like a distance very Ukrainian. And I had this thought for a second where like he just played this, he loves music and he is very good at he has the most diverse music taste on the planet, and it like makes literally zero sense, but all of it is really good. And but none of it like combines.
You like him? Oh, you do.
I do. Anyways, so I had to do like a double take because I thought, wait, is that Ukrainian? And then he goes, okay, can I just say this? Doesn't Gaelic sound like Ukrainian?
I think especially like old style songs, like traditional songs, because I've for some reason been getting quite a lot of like Irish women like washing clothes and like slapping them on the table. I don't know what exactly that action is called, but it's like a traditional thing apparently. Yeah. Because I've gotten quite a lot of those, and yeah, there was a lot of traditional singing, and that does sound a lot like Ukrainian traditional singing, like. But I think what you're trying to say, I'm assuming, is that I think Ireland and Ukraine actually has a lot of parallels in general.
That's true. You know how in Ukraine, when you sneeze while you say something,
Yes.
True.
But you know what else I thought that our listeners might enjoy and you might enjoy? I was reminded of a Ukrainian saying, discovering America, відкрити Америку,
Oh yeah.
which I think is the funniest thing. So in Ukraine, if like I say to Yulia, like, Yulia, you know, French bulldogs is like the coolest breed of dogs. And Yulia would say, wow, you just discovered America, dude. And
Yeah.
we use it a lot in Ukraine, but I think
It's kind of like thanks, Captain Obvious.
yes, it is literally thanks Captain Obvious, but I think it says a lot that Ukrainians are like, well, good job discovering America.
Yeah, it's a good one. But yeah, Irish Gaelic sounds very Ukrainian to me because it has a lot of sh sounds
And quite soft as well.
yeah, they are. And so it's actually interesting that this came up this weekend now that it's St. Patrick's Day. And not only do our languages, I guess, kind of share a lot of similar lettering, which makes sense as to, not that I want to bring up Irish ever again, really. Well, except for the educational purposes on dickhead versus PTSD. But it makes sense why he was repeating Ukrainian words like very well. I mean, zero accent. Like he didn't speak Ukrainian well,
But to make sounds, he could easily.
but the sounds were so they sounded crazy
if
Ukrainian.
he's used to making similar sounds for his native language, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I'm just gonna start with. I mean, most people, I'm assuming, knows just like the very basic history of Ireland. So, you know, the famine. Prisoners.
I don't even know if people know about. Let's maybe summarize it.
I mean, I made a little notey note so I can go through that to not forget anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels between Ireland and Ukraine, even if you like look very vaguely. I mean, just first of all is like struggle against imperialism.
Regime, yeah.
Yeah. And cultural erasure. I mean, Britain, there was banning of languages. There were, forced assimilations.
Did you notice how many Irish foreign fighters we have here? Actually, a lot.
Well, because they can relate.
They can relate, and I've actually asked, obviously, like my ex and like through the stories of his friends, because obviously, they gravitate towards each other. And they basically said that, because they believe in the cause. They believe in the cause and they know what it feels like. And it's just like, it's very near and dear to them because they feel like it's the same thing. It's one of those things where, when I think about it, and this is so bad to say, but obviously the IRA is a terrorist organization and I get it. It's been deemed a terrorist organization.
Any really far right or left, like any far groups, like, when they get to that far, they cannot not be terrorist, I think, at that point.
I mean, they've blown up members of the royal family.
Exactly. But I mean, like you can take any idea and just turn it to an obscene degree.
Yeah, but I also I understand them. It's like they did not have a strong military. They wanted their own autonomy. They wanted to be themselves, right? And their only way to sort of show their resistance was to do that. And the royal family, in their eyes, was to blame for imperialism because... hello, empire. Yeah. And while I don't condone the blowing up of Lord Mountbatten, although he was King Charles's favorite uncle, and I really don't like King Charles. You can't convince me.
I don't have many opinions about King Charles, but sure. I mean, you have a lot more opinions about people you've never met than I do.
Fair.
Yeah.
But also, I just used to really geek out about the British royal family. And you know what? Like a 30-year-old man marrying like a barely 18-year-old Diana and then cheating on her. And then cheating on her with his mistress and doing all of that stuff and her having bulimia. And anyways, just not good people. No. Just not good people in general. So it's the fact that it's his favorite uncle, you know what? Good job. Good job, DIRA. And I don't even think the English people are going to be mad at me for saying that because no one freaking likes him.
Well, if you are mad, let us know why.
Do you like King Charles? Do any English people actually like him? Because I don't think so. I don't think he's a likable man. Have you seen how awful he looks on the English money? They want to bring the Queen back. One of the things that I think is super relatable that I don't think a lot of people know is the language aspect is, how Russia made Ukrainian seem to be the language of the poor and specifically pushed that narrative. So that same narrative was also pushed in Ireland because basically only the poor people spoke Gaelic. So for instance, my lovely ex grew up in the council houses In America, that would be project, so like discounted housing for poor families, right? And he went to a Gaelic school, and Gaelic was his native language. And the reason why he went to a Gaelic school is because it was free.
Yeah.
And the only schools that are free in Ireland are Gaelic schools. So usually you would only go there if you are from a very unfortunate family.
So
And
that's
so-
portraying that stereotype that only people who are poor and like.
Uneducated speak Gaelic, and then the educated people with the future speak English.
But we had the same. I don't know if you were like, you probably had a different experience growing up in Lviv, but I remember vividly like growing up in Kyiv and people, there was this like Ukrainian is kind of like, and Russian is more culture. Like if you're from a higher class, you should speak Russian. Like I remember having that feeling, and like I don't remember meeting a lot of people of power or like a lot of people who are like doing really well, like my parents' friends even who spoke Ukrainian.
Well, I mean, I had a different experience growing up in the Lviv bubble, but I also know what you mean because in reality, when I would go visit my friends in Kyiv, people would like laugh at me if I spoke Ukrainian, right? And then also my mom specifically. So I have a very interesting language dynamic in my family where in my kitchen at home, if I were to turn to my dad, I would speak Ukrainian. If I were to turn to my mom, I would speak Russian, which is why it's so easy for me to switch between Ukrainian and English because my brain is wired to constantly switch between two languages. And when I say I never spoke to my mom in Ukrainian and my dad in Russian, I really mean it. Like it would be a constant switch up. And so my mom purposely, I asked her a few years ago, actually, when the full-scale invasion started, I was like, why did you even teach me Russian, right? Because we lived in Lviv. And she was like, well, I mean, I expected you to grow up and go past Lviv. And if you ever wanted to be in Kyiv or somewhere else or go to university or like work, you would need Russian.
And it's really sad because, I mean, that was the reality of us growing up, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to go to theater school, and for theater schools, I had to speak perfect Russian that did not have any hints of Ukrainian. So, like, a Russian.
Yeah.
Because I remember that being a big point, like, people making, like, my teachers making sure that I don't pronounce, like, sounds the Ukrainian way.
Yeah.
Or, like, our intonation is Ukrainian way. So, yeah, that's why it makes me happy when I see people in Ireland celebrating their culture more. Like, I've started seeing, like, more music in Gaelic, and, like, I think there's just a lot more of that, right?
Yeah, so much more music in Gaelic. I think more people are speaking Gaelic. I think like the Irish culture is being reclaimed, really.
Which gives hope.
Yeah, I mean, the IRA is kind of coming.
But what I also wanted to say is that there's a cool show. I think it's called Dairy Girls on Netflix, and I watched it maybe like before the full-scale invasion, and it was one of the first shows like that I watched. It's about teenagers who are growing up during the unrest in Ireland during that time, and they're like 14, 15, and I have never seen a show or that reminded me of my experience growing up. And that show hit it perfectly. Like that was exactly how it felt being in Ukraine during Euromaidan revolution. Like that's literally what our experience was. Like there's this huge, thing happening in our country, but we're 14-year-olds. Like we want to just do what we want to do and like figure out our lives and not have to think about this huge thing that will determine our life for the rest of it, really.
The big responsibility that falls on your shoulders when you're 14 that isn't just dating boys, it's understanding politics and knowing what you need to do for your future to be secured, which is a lot for a 14-year-old to think about. And I think maybe, this is how it also kind of plays into the situation today in America, right? Is that I think people in America, like 14-year-olds, they don't see it that way. 14-year-olds in America.
I think it's a different feeling, though. And I thought about it before, like, why are people in America not standing up? Other than just being comfortable, other than being polarized, bunch of reasons. But there has to be another reason. Like we've seen big revolutions in Ukraine. There's actually a lot of revolutions happening right now, right? But like we're seeing what's happening in Serbia. We saw what was happening in Georgia. Like,
dude, what's happening in Serbia is nuts. It's 800,000 people. It looks like Maidan.
I think it was 100. Let's double check because
or 80,000 people.
100,000.
Okay.
Yeah, on March 16th, there was over 100,000 people.
Yeah, and it looks like Maidan.
Yeah. It's the biggest protest in Serbia's history.
And it's so big, and it's against Vučić, who is pro-Russian, and a lot of things, obviously it's not about him being pro-Russian, but it also plays into him being pro-Russian because a lot of countries worldwide are tired of it. And
Tired of Russian influence.
yeah, there are protests against Viktor Orban
In Hungary.
and there is this candidate, I think his name is Peter Magyar, which literally means Hungarian. His last name means Hungarian.
Yeah, Magyar.
And he is the main opposition to Viktor Orban. And I actually interviewed a Kyiv-based Hungarian Research Institute fellow 6 months ago, I think. And he was telling me about this candidate, and he was like, just you watch, because he's going to be someone
So there's a
that's
chance
gonna
that
take
Hungary is going to stop screwing up stuff for Ukraine?
There is a chance that he might win. Like, he's
Wow.
apparently...
Because
Orban
Hungary
is,
has been really blocking Ukraine, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, they've been doing everything they can for Ukraine
and
to
Orban
not get
has
any
been
help.
like... And
Yeah.
Orban has been locked in as like this fascist influence, right? And it's really hard to get rid of him. And this guy apparently has a chance. But this is the thing. It's like, I think when we talk about world order changing, this is a very vivid example of this, because the countries that have never had to sort of experience Russia and this fascist regime stuff and just
Are
kind of
falling
like
into it.
imperialism on them are falling into it. The countries that had to experience it
Yeah.
are really
Well,
reversing.
they're fighting.
Yeah.
They're fighting. They're trying to do something because they know how hard it is to, uproot that. Like how hard it is to get rid of it once the roots sit in. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at Georgia. Like their protest, the same really protest, been continuing for over a year. Just been like paused and then continued again. And then apparently they just had another, for their 100 day. There's some people who came out,
Yeah.
and Georgia is, in America now, banned protests, isn't it?
They kind of did. Yeah, they're basically, they're making them illegal. They're arresting. They are cutting federal funding to colleges that allow protests on their campuses.
But most that's how most protest starts, from university students.
Yeah, grassroots at universities. And they also arrested I believe a Palestinian man who had a green card, who was married to an American citizen, who had a pro-Palestinian stance, and they arrested him and apparently are taking away his green card. And their reasoning was like, oh, but if you have a green card, it's a privilege and it's not guaranteed that you can stay in the United States.
I mean, that's technically true, but that's the logic with
Yeah.
stealing stuff, not having an opinion that differs from your government.
Exactly. And that's the interesting thing, is that their justification is basically just like, oh, but we can take it away. But he has no criminal record. He has never done anything wrong. It's just that he publicly protested against Trump's policies and against Israel.
Talking about Israel and Trump's policies, did you see, I don't know who said that, but I just saw this news blurb, and I know we need to read more than headlines, but I can look into it more. I just didn't want to look into it more because it just sounds so stupid. Somebody out of Trump's administration, or maybe Trump himself, suggested that people from Gaza should be moved to Africa.
Oh.
Which, maybe if you think about it for like 1.2 seconds, there's some sense to it. Like they don't have a home, give them home.
No,
But it makes no sense because it's the same logic of, realistically, Ukrainians who had been forced to relocate, Trump saying, you know what, Russians can stay in Mariupol, that's all fine. And you Ukrainians, you can't stay in America because we don't want you here. And so all of you need to, go to Africa or maybe China or maybe, Greenland. We don't really care where you go.
Yeah, but that's exactly how he's acting about Ukraine. He's just like, you're going to have to make major concessions.
Which we are.
Major concessions. Well, I don't know. I think it's honestly a political game, and the reason why I specifically didn't want to talk about the peace negotiations.
They're changing. There's no point talking about it. Trump is supposed to talk to Putin today or tomorrow. But yeah, so I'd like to think that I have hope, and I think about it as, we live in this historic times, which is horrible. But at the same time, I'd like to think that we are on the front seats of seeing how the humanity is going to change the history. And, instead of going down, down, down into where we're going, we're going to be like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to put a bunch of women in power. We're going to do all these things. They're going to propel us forward. And yeah, this is what I want to see.
Yeah, it's, America wants you to focus so much on men transitioning to women and women transitioning to men that you don't see how America is transitioning into the USSR and the world is transitioning. And the thing is that at the end of the day, light always defeats darkness, but at what price? Yeah. And speaking of light and speaking of colors, I thought I was so worried that I didn't have anything green to wear for St. Patrick's Day, and I just realized this has been here the entire time. And I think it actually came on as we started talking about St. Patrick's Day. So you know what? I'm going to take that as a sign.
If you enjoyed this crazy conversation during these crazy times, make sure to give us a like, give us a follow, write in the comments what you would like us to talk about, and honestly, any other thoughts you would like to share with us.
Also, yeah, like the comments in our comment section have been so good. And I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually do read all of them, but I always have this like thing where if they're long, I feel like I need to respond with something as profound, and then I just can't respond. So because I just second guess myself. So yeah, guys, I really do read all of the comments.
We do read all of it.
They're amazing, yeah. And I've been really enjoying the feedback, so please keep it coming. Yeah, so we'll see you next week on
If we survive.
If we survive on the same couch.
Bye.
Bye.